As we enter this time of contemplation, hear these words by Don Campbell. Don Campbell is the author of an interesting book called The Mozart Effect, Tapping the Power of Music to Heal the Body, Strengthen the Mind, and Unlock the Creative Spirit. And Don Campbell says, to begin this great journey inward requires belief and discipline, as well as the will to allow the inner and the outer worlds to relate. Listening, learning, study, and practice are important tools, but we need the courage to enter into ourselves with the great respect and mystery that combines the faith of a child, the abandon of a mystic, and the true wisdom of an old shaman. And we end with these words by Victor Hugo. Music expresses that which cannot be said and on which it is impossible to be silent. So now let's welcome DeeDee Tibbits.
Psalm 138 in the Message Bible says, thank you. Everything in me says thank you. Angels, listen as I sing my thanks. I kneel in worship, facing your holy temple, and I say it again. Thank you. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your faithfulness. Most holy is your name. Most holy is your word. The moment I called out, you stepped in. You made my life large with strength. When they hear what you have to say, O God, all earth's kings will say thank you. They'll sing of what you have done, how great the glory of God. And here's why. God, high above, sees far below. No matter the distance, he knows everything about us. Finish what you started in me, O God. Your love is eternal. Thank you. This song is entitled Psalm 138. Everything in me says thank you. Oftentimes think of life as a beautiful tapestry, and every one of us has a different story. But I want to tell you a little bit about the story. The beginning of my tapestry started in a little tiny town in Elkton, Michigan, and my dad came there to teach band. He was a band director. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She wanted 13 children and only got 7. And I'm glad she got 7 because I was number 6. And I have a picture, and I'm going to have Cheryl put it over back by my CDs. And I have I have a picture of my mom and my dad, and we had my maiden name was Bauman, and my mother was an itinerant speaker at many churches and retreats and workshops, even way back in the 40s and 50s. And my dad was a band director, and she started our little family band. Dad would kind of teach us the band instruments, and Mom would kind of teach us the words, and she loved alliterations. We were the Bauman Bread of Life bearers. And if you could say it, if you could say that, you could have us at your church. But I'm number 6, and by the time I got to be old enough to think about it, I had decided, and if you see, every one of my sisters and brothers were masters of instrument. Of course, I was 8, and they were 18 and 19, so I didn't realize that they'd had 10 years to practice. But I had decided I didn't have any talent. Until when I was in high school, I discovered the ukulele. Nobody in my family played any stringed instruments. Well, they thought that was kind of cool. I had my spot. I wasn't as good as they were on the trombone or the baritone or the tuba or the piano, but I could play ukulele. So that graduated to a love of stringed instruments, and I've been collecting them now for 40 years. So it's so fun because whereas before they were the experts, now they call me, we gotta have some stringed instruments down here. Will you come on down and bring a few of yours? So it's really been kind of fun. So Cheryl, I'm gonna just have you stick that over there. So take a look at it. My mother had to get 7 children dressed and ready for that photo op. This is the one they would put in the papers. But the look on her face is like, oh, it's so angelic. And I keep thinking, how could that happen after getting 7 kids ready? So they built a home on the river, on the Pinnebog River, and the heart of our home was God first, music second, and the family was able to make music together. And so one day when I was visiting the heart of my home, I realized that it was empty and it was still the same place, but the heart of the home, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters weren't there anymore. And at first it was a little sad, but on my way home, I started thinking about Dad being in the woods, cutting down wood, my mom in the house making a chili supper, and when it was ready, we'd all be helping because my dad was a hunter and he'd had us in the cornfields scaring up all the roosters that he could shoot at, and we'd eat supper that night. But I can remember her, she would come down, she had a great big wrought iron triangle, and she'd ring that thing, and when we were in the woods helping Dad, we'd say, Dad, chili's ready. So we'd all drop our logs and we would go and have a family meal together. And that's also incorporated in this song. So listen for the triangular wrought iron bell that she would call. This song is called The Heart of the Home. The spiritual tapestry thread came into my life when I was 8 years old, and I had a Sunday school teacher in our little church, and I honestly thought she was an angel because she had this beautiful white hair, and she beamed, and I thought she's got to be an angel because the Bible talks about having angels unawares. And I would sit in her Sunday school class and I would just stare at her. And she would talk about Jesus, and she would talk about the fact that God wanted to be a personal part of my life. And I think that was the time when I decided that I wanted to be like her. And if that's what it took, that's what I was going to do. Her name was Lucille, and I found out later that she had a very dysfunctional home. She was abused by her husband. And I didn't know that because this woman glowed. How can you live like that and then still live that way? And when she died a few years ago, I sat down to my dulcimer and God gave me this song. And the name of this song is The Light Within, because I knew even at that time that it was God in her that was shining out. So this one's called The Light Within. Unfortunately, I don't believe there is much of a green thread for Irish in my tapestry, but there's gotta be. I love St. Patty. I love your green tie. I love your green shirts and your hats. There is gotta be some, because once I started hearing Irish music, I just fell in love. Not just with the jigs and the reels and the fast ones, but with the slow airs of the passion that came out of such pain in their history and so much of depending on one another in that small country. And so, 46 years ago, when these two right here got married, Cheryl and Dave, Cheryl asked me if I would play at their wedding, and of course I said, sure. She said, but I have to have haste to the wedding. What's that? She said, it's a jig, and I said, oh, a jig. I've never played a jig before. So she sent me a little CD, or a cassette, a cassette that had Haste to the Wedding on it. And back in those days, we didn't have internet, we didn't have all sorts of access to all this music. So I just listened to it 100 times. I had to push rewind and make sure I heard it again. And at their wedding, for the first time ever, I played Celtic music and Haste to the Wedding. So I thought, I'm going to put that in here. Now they've been married 46 years, so this one is for them. But I wanted to thank them for getting me into a genre of music that to this day I absolutely love. Irish music. And I get to go there in May, so. So this is Haste to the Wedding in honor of our 46-year marriage of Cheryl and Dave. Yeah. An Irishman once told me that in Ireland, the jigs make the kids want to dance, and the reels make them want to fight. And the airs must make everybody want to cry. One of my most beautiful, I shouldn't say most, I love them all, is an Irish song called Banks of the O'Doon. And that's what I'd like to play next in honor of St. Paddy's Day and Celtic music in general. when I went to one of my first festivals down in Swannanoa, way down south, it was just such a fun time because I had never been around 300 people that just all they wanted to do was play music until ever. And so every night they would have a jam session, several jam sessions, but every night they would go down to Bryson Hall, which was an old school type building with a beautiful wooden floor, and people would come in from Asheville and from the surroundings on a Friday night, almost every night that week, and they would have a dance. They would do contra dance, they would do waltzes, they would do square dances, they would do all sorts of types, and it was just amazing because I had never experienced anything like that. So I would start jamming, and then I think, oh, they're dancing down there. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to jam or dance, so I kind of went both places. I'd go down there, and I'm very happily married, 50 years this month, but I love to dance, and my husband wasn't there. So I thought, oh no, what do I do? Do I just kind of, so I was standing against the wall, and two of my friends that were in a class with me during the day said, well, you gotta dance. I said, thank you, I've gotta dance, I want to dance. So they would feel sorry for me, I'm sure, and then we would dance, and then the special thing was the waltzes. They would pretend, their names were Tom and Jerry, and they would pretend to fight over who was going to get to waltz with me first. And so this became a nightly thing, and if I jammed too long, somebody would tap me on the shoulder and say, they're waiting for you down at Bryson Hall. So the most fun about those waltzes was those guys were so good that at one point, maybe the second or third evening when I got a little bit more used to it, they'd say, okay, you got 9 counts. We're gonna throw you out, you got 9 counts to make your way back. Oh, was that ever fun? So on my way home from Swannanoa, I'm driving along and this tune started coming to my head. And I thought, what am I gonna call this? Tom and Jerry waltz? No. Sounds like a cartoon or an ice cream. Isn't there ice cream, Tom and Jerry ice cream or something? But I ended up calling it Bryson Hall because I wanted to just honor this fantastic memory I had of those evenings dancing with such wonderful dancers. And in the middle of it, you should be able to hear where they throw me out for 9 counts and where I hopefully make myself back and continue the song. It's called Bryson Hall. can't love Irish music for very long before you run into a very famous composer named Turlough O'Carolan. He was a harpist. He became blind when he was 18 years old, and so from then on he made his living going to different estates with his harp, and they would have planned all their weddings, all their, I can't think you can plan your funeral that far ahead, but all their parties, all their gatherings, and when he was there for however long, then Turlough would entertain their families and their friends. And if they paid him a special amount more above what he usually got, he would name a song. He would write a song for one of the people that they wanted to honor. And those songs are called planksties. And if you look at O'Carolan's music, there's lots of planksties. And so O'Carolan really had a big influence, and it was in the 1700s, so this was a long time ago. But the O'Carolan music is still alive and well. And this is a Carolan tune called either Ramble or Return to Cashel. And I believe Cashel might have been either a town or a castle. I'm not sure. But I love this particular piece by Turlough O'Carolan. Quite often I get asked to play for weddings, and most of the time I have them come to my house and I play them what I can play, and then they pick which ones they want where. But this time it was a former student of mine who said, it doesn't matter what you play except for one thing. I want you to play La Vie en Rose. And I went, what? She said, I'll send it to you. This is a 25-year-old girl. And I found out that this song was written by a gal named Edith Piaf, and she was a famous musician, singer in France in the 1940s, maybe 50s too. And she wrote this song, La Vie en Rose, and it became a classic. I'm sure it's been on, I think the only place I had ever heard it was on a movie or something. And so I learned it on the hammer dulcimer, which takes quite a while. Those of you hammer dulcimer players know it takes quite a while to perfect a song to what you want to have it. She wanted to come in down the aisle with this song. So it was pretty important that I get it good. So I've put it into my repertoire because I have fallen in love with this particular song, La Vie en Rose. So it takes a lifetime to make a tapestry. When I did my first album, I had to call it Tapestry of My Heart because I had been on the road with my family for 20 years, and I was finally able then to really focus on the hammer, dulcimer, and my whistle, and do more things like what I've been doing tonight. And so one day I sat down thinking of the title of my album, and I said, my life has been a tapestry. It's been a beautiful tapestry. And this poem came out. Shapes and colors blended together, weaving in and around each other like golden thread on the loom of time, defining this pattern as wholly and uniquely mine. Vibrant shreds of yellows and reds blended with the new of green and blue, add some space and then a trace of dark remnants of rugged hues. For without the darker, duller shades, the other's brightness would surely fade. Now weave throughout a purple thread of grace and love, and one can start to see within this masterpiece a tapestry of my heart. And all of our lives, tell your stories. Tell your stories to your kids and your grandkids. If they don't listen, write them down. And maybe after you're gone, they'll want to read about them. Because we are who we are because of the people that God puts in our lives, the parents, the families. And it does take some dark threads as well as the bright, fun hues to make a beautiful tapestry. So this is a title song from that album called Tapestry of My Heart. I thought, oh, what would be a wonderful way to end this special time together? And I thought, well, I want to play my whistle, not just on alone, but I wanted to play it with an accompaniment that really shows the range and the beauty of this. And I picked an Eileen Ivers tune called Bygone Days. And what this tune does for me is it shows me the tapestry of my life, the tapestry of my friend's life, the tapestry of this world, and what a beautiful place that it can be. And it will take you someplace it hadn't taken me. So go wherever it takes you. This song is called Bygone Days. you for inviting me, Julia. That song just grabs me. Here's a departing prayer that a very dear friend of mine wrote. Songwriter of our souls, press your music into our spirits that we might daily sing an anthem of praise. O Lord God of heaven, may the melody from our hearts please you, bless you, and give you glory. Thank you.
DeeDee, thank you, and what an amazing evening. I think it was Hans Christian Andersen, the Danish writer, who once said, "Where words fail, music speaks." And your music touched us this evening, mind, heart, and spirit. And on behalf of all of us here, we thank you very, very much for your gifts. So thank you. I also want to thank Dr. Julia Brown, our staff person who pulls all this together. What a great evening. Wonderful to be together. Our cooks and servers. Those meatballs were awesome. And thanks you for being together on a St. Patrick's evening, for this chance to be together as a community and to celebrate together the wonder and beauty of music, but also the way that music touches our very spirits in our lives. So thank you for being here. I would like to close, especially since it's St. Patrick's Day evening, with a Celtic blessing. And it is located in your program, so you can take this home with you. But here is the Celtic blessing for you and for this evening. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the Son of peace to you. Go now in peace. And thanks for being with us this evening. Blessings.